Hey everybody, it's Professor Diffley, Philosophy 201. This is Module 3. This is lecture video 4. Now we're going to deal with Kantian ethics, formalism, deontological ethics. This one is a little bit more straightforward because we're only dealing with one moral philosopher, Immanuel Kant, and his views. And so let's get into this. Now, learning objectives, again, you can see those here. They're also in the textbook and in the Blackboard. So, categorical imperative, hypothetical, practical imperative, these are some of the major concepts from Kant, and we'll deal with them as we go through the slides. So, overview of this. That's a picture of Immanuel Kant. He was an 18th century writer, for the most part, an Enlightenment era thinker, very, very influential in the Enlightenment. He argued that how do we come up with how to live the best life, right? And that's really what all ethicists are looking at, is we should be based on reasons drawn from simple, unbending rational premises. What he's arguing is that we should have rules to live by, right? And rules that make sense to people. Now, it's funny because he wanted them to be simplistic, as the textbook notes. Reading him in the original is really, really difficult because it's really, really tough to read. It's not that simple and straightforward. So what I've tried to do here is try to simplify it for you. That's why we're not reading a lot of directly from Immanuel Kant. Kant is against deontological, so it says we don't care about the consequences. Why? We can never know the consequences. So we can't know whether something good or bad until after the fact. That's no way to make ethical judgments. We should have rules, and they should make sense, and so we don't care about the outcome. We need to find rules, and we should live by those rules. And again, it's absolutist, right? There is no relativism. There's no relativism here, right? Lying is wrong across the board, right? All the time. Killing is wrong all the time, right? We're not going to find justifications for it. Again, maybe there could be a carve out for self-defense, but you get what I'm saying there. It's really absolute, right? Lying is wrong. It's what all should believe everywhere. That sort of thing. That's what we mean by absolutist. So let's go into deontological. Again, non-consequentialist. So what does it mean? Morality of an action is determined by whether it conforms to or violates a moral principle. Moral decisions must be made a priori after considering both the moral imperative and the practical imperative. So again, ahead of time, we need to make these. Again, we're not worried about outcomes because we cannot know them. And why? Because again, just because you have the intent to have a certain outcome doesn't mean it's going to happen. There's lots of things that can intervene between your action and what happens next. Some things out of your control. That's sort of it. Now, he says our motivations to act do matter. And why? We should act out of, and not all motivations are equal. It's our duty. Here's what motivates humans: duty, inclination, and selfishness. So what does this mean? According to Kant and formalism, only actions motivated by duty can be morally correct. Why? Well, let's get into this. What's an inclination? Inclinations have no moral worth. It is very similar to selfishness, right? It feels good to feel good, to donate to charity, to avoid taxes, to impress others, right? So I donate to charity. Not always. Just the act of donating to charity is not enough. It's why am I doing it? Am I doing it to avoid taxes, right? You saw Mark Zuckerberg, donates billions to taxes. What? He's never going to have to pay to charity. Never have to pay taxes ever again, right? So I'm sure he wanted to help some people, but it's also about the finances, right? If I'm making donations to charity because I think it's going to impress you, that's not good, right? Because my goal is, again, to impress you, nothing else, right? So if you have an inclination, it's usually not the right motivation to act, right? Because you're just really looking out for yourself. Duties have moral worth. It's an obligation. It's what we ought to do. There's no interest in the consequences. If you have, the less inclination you have to do something, the more likely it's a duty. Now, what do we mean by that? What we mean is it's not always easy to do the right thing, right? It's hard to do the right thing sometimes. Sometimes it's easier to lie to get out of doing something. to take the easy route. Our duties are what really matter because they're difficult, and they're difficult because they matter, right? Do you get what I'm saying there? It's an obligation. We have to do it because it's the right thing to do, right? I see you, I'm standing in line behind you in the grocery store. I see $100 bill drop out of your pocket. My inclination is to take it. Why? Because I could use $100. Well, that's probably because it's wrong. My inclination is wrong, right? What is it? My duty is to turn it back to you, right? I saw it fall out. I'd want you to do that for me, right? I'd hope you do that. That's what we're talking about, differences here. He says, why? Because goodwill is good without qualification. We do it because it's good in and itself. We don't care about the consequences. These are just the right things to do. Goodwill, it's found only in humans. What makes it good? When the will to act comes out of duty and not inclination. I know that's roundabout, but again, it's because what is right. Even though I'll benefit more by keeping that money, the right thing is to give it back because that's just the right thing to do. It really comes down to that. It's just right to do. Motivating for an act is important, and that's really the takeaway from this. So what's the categorical imperative? This guides all conduct. So this is what it means. It's categorical, and an imperative is something we must do, and it's categorical. This doesn't matter. These are the things we must do. It's objectively necessary in and of itself without reference to another end. And we'll see this with apparent goods in virtue ethics. A person should never act in a way in which the rule behind an action, a maxim is just a rule, should not become a universal law. This is really where that the Kantian crash course video is really helpful here. Now think about this, right? An act is morally right only if it's a maxim that can be universalized. So, I'm hungry, and the person behind the counter is not paying attention. I can steal this sandwich. Now, I don't have the money to pay for it. I'm really hungry. I should steal this because it's going to benefit me. Why is that not okay, according to Kant? Why? Because any rule you're going to live by, so I'm stealing because I'm hungry and because I can, is not good. Because now imagine a world in which everybody steals all the time. The rule is everybody should steal from everybody else all the time. Do you want to live in that world? How do you think that world's going to be? You're going to trust that world? Are you going to feel safe in that world? Right? That's it. So if you're going to act out of something, your reason for doing it, you have to imagine everybody else in the world doing it. And do you want to live in that world? That's really is what he's looking at here. So he comes up with three major conceptions here of this. So this is the first. Act only according to a law, a maxim, through which you can at the same time will that it become universal law. So again, this is, would you want everybody doing this? Is it okay to steal? No, because then it would be everybody stealing from everybody. Is it okay to lie? No, because do you want to live in a world where everybody is lying all the time? Imagine how difficult that would be. The second one here is what I call the practical imperative, what the video calls the practical imperative as well. And this is what you should focus on here. It is also, it's a different part of it, of the categorical imperative, but it's just important. It says never, ever act in a way to use other people as merely as a means, right? What's this saying is we have to respect other people. This is why we shouldn't lie. If I lie to you, you don't have full ability to make decisions for yourself because you don't know the whole truth. I'm lying to you to get you to act in a way that will benefit me, right? So I'm withholding information. I'm telling you the truth. I get you to do something by tricking you. So we should respect people. We should never use them as merely as a means. They are ends in themselves. This is a practical imperative. Now here's the thing. We use people all the time. I'm using you, you're using me right now. We really are. You're using me to get information, to get knowledge, right? I'm using you because I need people in my class to get paid, right? This is my job. My job is to impart knowledge and information. I need people to then come and get that information. Why is that okay? Because it is. Why? Because we went into this eyes wide open. You get what I'm saying? We're using it's I'm not lying to you. You know you're paying for information. I know that you're here to get information. We are both using each other and we both agree to it. So that's okay. And so the last one in this, but really the first two are really the ones I want you to focus on. That maxim should be a universal law, and the practical imperative: never use people as merely a means, right? You have to be honest with people. But also the third one here is every rational being must act so that he were, through his maxim, always a lawmaker in the universal kingdom of ends. What does he mean? Again, this is the moral maximalizing universal idea. So the practical imperative, again, act in a way that you treat humanity, yourself, and others as an end and never a means. Don't use people. That's exactly it, right? And you can see the video on this. Is it permissible to kill? He would say no. Killing is never permitted, no matter the situation. Again, if you give me that gun and say, shoot this one person and save 19, I can't do it. Why? Because it's wrong to kill. Those other 20 people were going to die whether or not I showed up, right? So you can't now blame it on me. Someone else chose to kill them. Me, by stepping in and killing that one person, is just as wrong. I shouldn't allow those others. I shouldn't kill them to save, and I should allow the others to die. Now, a lot of people kind of have a problem with that too, because you had a chance to save 19, you didn't. But again, we can look at those things. Again, you can read on the kingdom events here. A practical imperative is really the basis of our natural rights. It's really the basis of our inalienable rights. And all men are created equal. We have these rights that cannot be taken away from us. Why? Because everybody should be treated equal. Everyone should have the same action there. Options. Is a rule, maxim, morally valid, permissive? Again, it has to be necessary and apply in all circumstances. Now, what do we mean this? And these are just rules. You can see this. It's just steps in it. Don't worry too much about this. I'm not going to test you on test 1, test 2 in these conceptions. But here's the thing. Here's the hypothetical imperative. Not everything, it has to be an absolute necessity, right, for something to be a maxim. Hypothetical imperatives are a means of attaining something else, but they're not a categorical imperative. So an example, a diet. My goal is to lose weight. Is it a categorical imperative that I must go on a diet? No. Why? There's other ways to lose weight. I could do other things to lose weight than just go on a diet. Here's another way. My goal is to help people. Is it therefore a categorical imperative that I must become a medical doctor? No. Why not? There's other ways to help people. I don't just have to be a doctor to help people. Do God's will and you won't go to hell. This is something I was going at before. Why doesn't that work? Well, depending on your conception of a God, we're assuming here that God wants us to do good things, right? But we're only doing it so we won't go to hell. We're not doing it because we think it's good. We're trying to avoid punishment. And again, if I'm just trying to avoid punishment or achieve a reward, maybe I'm willing to do some unsavory things. He also says the golden rule is no good because, again, it doesn't matter it doesn't describe our duties. Again, that's what I was saying. What if I like to hurt people? I'm okay with people hurting me. So I should be okay with hurting other people. Again, not what you think about as the category, as the golden rule. Again, should we lie? No, never. Why? Because the consequences of being truthful, we can never know what the consequences are going to be for certain. Lying conflicts with our moral duty, right? And you can see this in the Kant's Acts. And watch the video on this. There's the Kant's Acts video. This is also covered in the crash course video. Someone shows up at a door with an axe wanting to kill somebody in the house, one of your loved ones. Do you lie? Kant says no. Watch the video to see why. I just don't want, again, you can disagree with it. It's actually going to be something in the blog, so I don't want to go too far into that. Criticisms, this is inflexible, right? There's no exceptions. So imagine having to be truthful to everybody you know all the time, your loved ones, never being able to tell a white lie to spare their feelings. It's not really, It's not really practical, right? It doesn't between our duties to all real, all rational beings. You know, sometimes we view we should act in certain ways to our family and loved ones than we should to others. Some people argue that Kant doesn't really, he wants us to be robots, right? And just, it's hard. It's really hard to view the world he wants us to live in. That, you know, we always follow these rules. You should never kill. You should never lie. There's no ever conceivable justification for that. That seems to conflict with how we know the world works, is really the biggest problem with that. Here's just a comparative slide. You can see this on your own. It kind of gives you the really summaries of the two. So that's the last video for the lecture slides. Again, read the lecture slides yourself. If you have any questions, let me know.